Hi everyone, welcome back to Return to the Real You call number 5. And today we're going to talk about receiving wounds. Okay. So, does anybody want to start with what you think is a receiving wound? And then we'll kind of dive into the call. Anyone? What do you think?
So I'm not clear as per is it a wound or not, but I know that having hesitation towards receiving in terms of, especially in terms of compliments, gifts, praise, is something which might come under this, but I really have no idea how can it become a wound.
Yeah.
Probably we might, if it is in a situation like a receiving wound, then we block all the good things coming to us that way.
Yeah. Great. Let me just talk a little bit about what a wound is. So, when I say wound, I really mean some sort of a block, okay, for the like for this call or for the purposes of understanding what energetic wounds are. Mostly they are we will consider it a wound. Like for instance, when you get a cut, right, and you fall, of course that becomes a wound, right, and then you kind of put it all on it or whatever, right? So that we are very clear about, it's a wound. However, energetically, when there is a block towards, say, receiving healing or block towards receiving good things in life, we would say that would be a that would consider to be considered a wound. And then receiving, like you mentioned, all the things, right? Even a compliment, from compliment to money to even receiving, like I was just writing the notes before the call. Receiving nutrients from the food we eat is receiving, right? Don't you think? Like a lot of times doctors say that you need to have extra supplements or you need to have certain foods, right? Because you're not actually getting, say, iron from the spinach that you're having, right? So that's also receiving. So it could be that minute to actually receiving, good relationships, money, whatever, other things that you're talking about. So all of that, if there is a block, then energetically there is a, wound, I would say. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So what do you think? Well, I anyways talked about it. So is that something similar that you have to say, Nestara? Or
Um, I think it makes sense when you hit on the nutrient from the food, that automatically just makes so much sense because I mean every day if I suppose if we are energetically not even not energetic, I think with intention, if you're not thinking about it, or
yeah.
if you're saying, oh, I eat it, but I'm not getting the nutrition energetically, perhaps you've created it yourself, the block.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I
Or whatever
definitely
reasons. Yeah.
feel it for the food nutrients and the nutrition value that we get. Also,
Yeah.
perhaps subconsciously, we do it for all the other things as well, maybe some more than others.
Yeah.
Um, but it's probably just all different kinds of aspects where we are blocking certain types of receiving in life.
Yeah.
So,
Or,
yeah.
like for instance, for especially Indians, they say that they need to have vitamin D supplements, right? Because they're not
Yeah.
receiving that from the sun. Even though,
Yeah.
so there is some, so even that's receiving, So,
Yes.
and then also culturally, I would say country wise, like it's like energetic um tribe, they all function together as well, you see. So there, like everybody is kind of in the same loop and everybody needs to have that vitamin D. Not everyone, but like, most of us,
Most.
there is deficiency. So even they can be receiving wounds for countries, right? They can be receiving wounds for people of a particular culture as well, right? So there are so many blocks or wounds that we can think about and kind of work on. And when I'm talking about different wounds today, again, I would not say that this is an exhaustive list because, like I said, if you're coming from a particular culture, you probably have, probably are aware of much more than we are talking about. But this is more of a general, um, you know, list that I've seen with working with people over a decade. And of course, add your own things. And we're going to do some healing today. So anybody who watches it later as well, I would say add your own experiences to it, and then work on it. And of course, your receiving goods can be absolutely different from someone else. And this is a general call. So when we do one-on-one work, we actually dive deep into understanding what's coming up for that particular person, right? Because some for somebody, who doesn't have a mother, and for like growing up, and for someone, who has a very controlling mother, and for someone who has a very loving mother, they will all have different experiences with that maternal energy, right? So we cannot really generalize the mother wound, right? Because everybody has a different experience with their mother. And two loving mothers can also be different for two people, right? And how they receive their love. For example, you must have seen, again, let's like start talking about the what receiving is, and kind of go deep into that. So even for two siblings who grow up in the same family, you would see that one sibling has a different relationship with their parents, and one is absolutely different, right? They had the same upbringing, everything. If we are considering that, they kind of got the same resources, everything, even then you would see a difference there, right? So if this means the receiving for both of them, or three or four, were different, was different based on certain things that we're going to talk about today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
And I
Okay.
wanted to ask
Yeah.
you a question when we're talking about receiving. Say you're energetically blocking one stream of receiving from a particular thing. Does that mean you're also blocking all the others laterally? Is that how it works? Because if you've
Yeah.
already blocked yourself to a certain type of receiving, are you also blocking yourself to all other types of receiving? I just, at the conscious level, that one thing is blocked, that means all the other channels are also kind of sort of blocked.
It's interesting you asked me this, because I was thinking about judgment. And when we say, if there is one school of thought that says that when we judge somebody, like for instance, you judge me for being very harsh, for example, right? Now, what is happening is you are blocking your receiving from me, which means that now you only consider me as a person who is harsh. I could be loving, I could be, a best friend, I could be a gazillion things, right? But you are considering me as being harsh, and so you are stopping your receiving from those other unlimited versions of Anisha. You see? So that
Yeah.
happens when you judge. However, I would not say you will stop your receiving from Yashika altogether as well. But this portion of me, like this harshness, you will block the harsh version of Yashika from contributing to you. Does that make sense? So wherever you judge a part of something, right, that part of everyone is getting blocked from contributing to you. Does that make
Got it.
sense? I think I
A little.
complicated it. Like, for instance, I'll give you another example. Suppose you judge your mother-in-law, example, for being very for not being suppose you think about your partner, okay, he's not available, okay, and he's not talking to you, and he's always working, he's a workaholic, okay. Now you keep judging him that he doesn't have time for me, he doesn't have time for you, doesn't. Now what you're doing is you are blocking, of course, when you're focusing on the fact that he is not giving you time, you're blocking the time that he could have given you, number one, right? Because you're constantly focusing on no time, right? That's one. The second is, even if now he wants to give you time, like, work less and maybe come home early, or, go on a vacation, whatever. Since the focus is constantly on him being a workaholic, and you've judged him as a workaholic, now, firstly, you will not get that time from him. And secondly, suppose you have a business and there are a lot of people who are busy professionals, right? Now you're blocking your receiving from all the busy professionals, because you've judged one person, you've judged that same aspect for everyone. So every working workaholic who was willing to do business with you, now you've, or who was willing to reach out to you for something or the other, now you've blocked that receiving from them. Does that make sense? So there is a
Yeah.
connection between judgment and receiving, for sure. But what you're saying about, I mean, I think that's the connection, rather than a blocking receiving from one end, and then,
Yeah.
that's the connection. So if you can kind of not judge and be neutral about certain things, then you keep
Yeah.
your receiving open, not just from that person, but from everyone,
Yeah. So basically, how we stereotype based on judgment. You have a bad
Oh, yeah.
experience with one particular person from one particular country. We just
Yes.
automatically assume that everyone from that country is sort of going to be based on those experiences you had, is what I'm
Yes.
understanding.
Totally,
And
yeah.
we preconceived notion is that pretty much everyone from there would be like that.
Yes.
But we're
Yes,
open-minded
perfect.
to a third person from a different country, perhaps in some way or the other.
Yeah.
But we've got our walls s- I
High.
mean, you know how we have a
Yes.
door and then we have a jali wala
Yes.
door. We
Yes.
kind of still have the jali because we're still
And that's how
prejudging
you're
based on a
blocking
certain
the
amount.
receiving.
Right.
Yes,
Okay.
you got
Yeah.
it. That's what it is. Yeah. And actually, in terms of business, especially in my business coaching, I tell everyone about judgment, because when we judge one person, right, we are actually blocking or receiving from, say, similar clients from different parts of the world, right, or like
Right.
just same place as well. So we are actually blocking or receiving. Yes. And in terms of business, I'm talking about money, but you know that receiving can be so many things, right? It could be a good compliment, it could be a helpful client, right? It could be somebody who's referring you to someone. So many other ways of receiving you can get. And you cannot block all of that every time you judge a person for something. Every time you
Yeah. I
judge
mean,
yourself, you're blocking
in
yourself. Yeah.
in terms of business,
Yes.
say one time somebody came through a particular reference. After that, you're always wary of those kind of references. So you're kind of energetically blocking it. And I
Blocking it.
kind of feel with the nutrient value that we're talking from food, if in my mind in today's day, if we're living, in a metropolitan city and we know
Yeah.
that, okay, I in my heart feel that everything, the food that I'm getting is loaded with pesticides. It's got a lot of fertilizer. It's probably injected with I don't know how many things. So at some level, I have judged that food and I am blocking
Yes.
myself, just not from the harmful things, but from the good, little good that I could have
That can
received.
come, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why energetically, I always ask my clients to bless their food, right? And to kind of pray or whatever, like do a kind of a energetic thing before they consume their food, just because we keep judging, so much that ultimately we're eating the same thing. So then imagine all the energy that goes into it, and then we consume it, and then what happens to our body. So yeah, and also bless
Yeah.
your body, because your body is ultimately, because you can have say samosa and chaat, and someone else can have it, and someone else can have a bad stomach, and you didn't, right?
Yeah.
Both of you received that differently, isn't it? It's very
Yeah.
simple like that if you look at it. And the same medicine for somebody can be so miraculous and the person just heals, and for the other they're taking it for years and it's not really making a difference, right? So even with medication it happens. So we have to understand our body. I mean, body and receiving can be another call altogether, but our body also receives in very miraculous ways, right? And it heals also in different ways. So if we kind of connect with our body, we, our receiving becomes more open, and it becomes more abundant that way as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Perfect. So let's start with I'm going to keep referring to my notes because there are different topics that I kind of put together today. So let's start with a small meditation just to understand how we receive, and then I'll, talk about what receiving is, and then we'll go to the wounds. Okay. So just close your eyes and take a deep, long breath. Just settle down and relax. Slowly inhale with your nose and exhale from your mouth and relax. Do this 3 to 4 times more. Slowly breathing in from your nose and breathing out from your mouth. Inhale abundance and exhale all the resistance in your body and relax. Now place one hand on your heart and the other one on your belly and whisper softly to yourself, today I choose to open. Today I choose to receive with ease, grace, and gratitude. And take a deep breath in. Now I want you to visualize a warm golden light expanding around your body. And this is your receiving field. This will make it easy for you to receive all the good things in life. Everything that you're blocking, it's gentle, protective, and magnetic. Today, we'll reawaken this feel and remind your body how to trust the inflow of life. Yeah? So take a few more seconds to be in this energy, feel this energy. And relax. And then slowly, 3, 2, 1, slowly open your eyes and come back to the here and now. Yeah. Okay, beautiful. So let's start with the definition of receiving. Okay. Now, if you look at nature, okay, or if you look at everything around you in nature, you would see that receiving is very natural. It's a natural flow of life that happens. So, can you think of any example of things around you where you've seen receiving as a part of life?
Sunlight for plants.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So actually, the ocean receives rivers, right? Plants receive sunlight, plants receive water, plants receive nutrients. And if they don't receive all of that, right, from the soil, from the sunlight, from water, then they won't be able to grow. So they have to receive in order to grow, right? Think about humans, us. What do? We are receiving every moment. How? Maybe we're not completely aligned with it. Maybe we are not completely taking all the magic from that process, but it's still happening.
Breath, air,
Yeah,
oxygen. Yeah.
yeah. We don't fully breathe the way we should. Like breathing fully and connecting with our belly. And that's where breath work actually comes in. And if we do practice breath work every day, say even anulom vilom, it could change our lives for the better. Because apart from the breath, right, the oxygen that we're breathing in, there is also this chi, right, prana, and that's what the magic where we believe in that. That's where the magic is, right? And if we actually connect with this prana that's all around us, we can heal ourselves, we can heal our lives, we can heal so many things, right? So were you going to say something else, Ashika, or breath?
No, with receiving, I could only think of receiving blessings. I think no matter how
Yeah.
hard life gets, somehow if you're managing to go through easily, so it's all blessings that we receive with something good
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, and sometimes this is a very big thing that you're talking about, receiving blessings, because a lot of people don't even do that, right? But yes, when we do surrender, then sometimes, you haven't we seen that the moment we surrender and we just give up, kind of things work out, right? People who've been trying to get pregnant for 10 years with IVF, and then they give up and then they get naturally pregnant, right? What's happening there? It's actually our resistance to holding on to controlling, trying to do something, and in the process, we stop receiving, right? Because we are trying to control everything. And when we give up in that sense, right? And we surrender, then we kind of receive the blessings of, like you're saying, of whatever, right, that we've prayed for, because we keep praying, but we don't let the universe show us the results because we try to control it, right? And so when we let go of that control, I'm not saying don't do like the action part is not the problem. The problem is that while we're doing the action, we can also surrender then. So we can do the IVF and we can still surrender, right? But when we do it and we see that there is no success, we again go back to stress, tension, and then we again try to do more, 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 more. That's where the surrendering is not happening. We can live a life of surrender every day while we're doing our dharma, whatever karma. If you are a mother, you're taking care of your kid. If you have a business, you are taking care of your business. So whatever your job is, you're doing with full intent, with full good energy, and you're surrendering, because we can do, you all know, right, we can do all the right things and they can still be trouble, right? So then what? So we kind of, but what happens is, in the ego of me, we think that even if that trouble comes, I have to do everything, because like I will have to manage it, right? But there is, so if you keep that window of surrender open every day for blessings, for God, for the higher self, whatever it is, that energy to flow in, then, and you don't try to control that part, then actually every day becomes a flow, right? That I'm talking about. So nature receives every day. Earth receives rain, ocean receives river, we receive the breath every moment, right? So what happens is that if we actually stay in this flow of receiving and giving, so what is this breath? The breath is going out and the breath is coming in every moment. So you see there is a flow of giving and receiving that happens. So if we keep receiving and don't give, that's also an imbalance. And if we only keep giving and not receiving, that's also an imbalance. So there needs to be a balance in both. And that's where the flow of life, or flow of the universe and things start going. Like people say that, these things just work out for me. So when they're saying that, they're actually in this energetic balance of giving and receiving. And it can be as simple as giving your best to life, and being grateful, and having that gratitude that I have given my best and I know only good things will happen, and then surrendering, and then good things will happen. But if you are giving your best and then saying that there are no results, nothing is working out, then you're not giving your best, because giving your best means giving and then surrendering, not. But if you see, so if you try to control it, then you're not giving. So this means there is a block in giving, then there will be a block in receiving. Right. So let's take an example of business itself, because I anyways love business coaching. So a lot of times what happens is, we say that when we suppose you let me give you my example. So if I have done a healing for a person, and I keep thinking about the results, right? So then what happens is, and the client hasn't seen the results, right? Now if I am not completely sure about my work, and if I and anyways it is spiritual work, right? And I don't surrender to, say, whatever it is, God or whatever you believe in, and I don't think that this work was done through me rather than by me, then I would very soon see clients who are dissatisfied, or clients who are coming in the way of their own results, right? Because actually this energy is mine, I was not giving the right energy, so then they are also not receiving the healing. So you see how this actually works in every level of your life. It could be you and your mother, the relationship. It could be you and your clients. It could be you and your health. So if you are not eating the good food, or if you're not, and you know what, with food also I have had a very good weird experience. So in my own health journey, I have seen that even if you have all the good food or nutrients, whatever it's healthy for you, you will still not reap the benefits of it if there is cortisol. And cortisol is just stress, right? And every time you go to the doctor nowadays, they say that sure, Abhi, you can have all of this, but don't be stressed, have do meditation, do yoga, right? So you see how when there is stress and we're not able to actually make peace with what we are eating, that good food also doesn't really affect the body, it's still causing ill effects rather than good effects. So ultimately it all comes down to the energy of what are you thinking, and what are you giving to your body. And actually if you're stress free in that sense, then you could have, or if you're going to the gym or whatever, you're doing your healthy whatever thing, you can eat so-called unhealthy food and still feel more healthy. You see, so many things are contingent upon how your energy is and how you're receiving it, right? So your good thoughts to yourself constantly can be much more magnetic and powerful than you are constantly berating yourself and then going and eating, say, kale salad, and that's not going to affect you, because the energy is of criticism, right? And with criticism, anything that comes in will have more criticism than the good energy, So that's where the receiving and giving actually around food is very easy to explain, because all of us eat food every day and it affects our body in different ways, right? So, okay, so any questions? Otherwise, I'll start with the blocks.
So when we say that I judge somebody and now I'm blocking that harshness in everyone around me and not receiving, how can I relate it to the attracting the repeated patterns? Is the same thing, I guess?
So that is another, I would say, area that we can explore. For instance, now what happens if first is if you've judged someone for something, there is some sort of a, I could say, pending karma around this, and that's why you're constantly, instead of healing the situation, even going deeper and creating more karma. For example, somebody came and said something rude to you, okay, something very nasty, and now if you are aware in your own body and you know the ill effects of, okay, now if I get into this trauma, then a lot of things will happen, like, my peace of mind will go, my health will get affected, all of that, right? If you can only think of that if you're centered, right? But if you're not centered, which many of us are not, if somebody close to us says something to us, so now you hate that person, right? The moment you hate that person, you are adding another layer to that drama which could have ended, and now you've created more karma, right? So now you have to work on this layer and this layer if you want to eliminate that, right? So so sorry, what was your question? I got
So
derailed.
I judged your harshness, and then I'm also attracting everyone around me who
Yeah,
is relatively more harsh. So
right.
am I attracting the patterns? Is it same?
Yeah. So when I was explaining this to you, I meant that now you've added more karma. Now, when karma comes in, another layer of karma comes in and you have created it, what does it mean? It means that something came in as a trigger. When something comes in as a trigger, it is actually coming in to heal something within us that's not really sorted. Because if we were sorted in that area, that thing wouldn't have triggered us, right? Now that, so instead of not getting triggered, we got triggered, we created another layer of karma, which means that that part of us has actually become bigger. That unhealed part of us has actually become bigger with this extra layer of hatred, anger, whatever it is, right? So now the universe is like, this person hasn't learned their lesson. Well, this trigger came in, they could have not reacted, they could have moved on, but instead they reacted, and now they've created a next layer of karma. So let me send them more of such experiences so that they learn their lesson. And so, like you said, more people with more rage show up. And now, if you've not worked on that trigger, this trigger will become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because the universe is not going to let you go. You have to learn the lesson this way or that way, right? So you can actually, that's why I keep telling my clients that if there is a relationship issue and they are not able to sort out, you can very well get divorced, right? But you will end up in a similar situation again, maybe not with a partner, but maybe with a boss, maybe with a friend, maybe with a brother, right? And you'll have the same toxicity follow you again and again till you're able to actually deal with it, look into its eyes, not be fearful, heal from it, and then it'll go away. Then you will not see such people around you. You see? So that's the two layered answer for you. Got it?
Very, very well explained, Anisha.
Ha.
Thank you. I mean, I knew it,
So,
but I could never relate both of them. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. So that's what happens. So yeah, that's that's why we are told to not judge. We're told to, but there are like actually layers. When I also learned it, now I understand how it's going to impact me negatively. So you become a little more, I guess, kind to yourself when you get to know the process. Otherwise, it's very easy for us to judge, right? And it's very easy for you to be triggered with everything. But when you know what's happening and what is it going to lead to and what can it actually end, you become more discerning and you become more, open to not doing these things rather than, just succumbing to that urge to, anger or whatever comes up, right? So, and it's a practice, by the way. It's not like one day you'll get up and it'll happen. But if you keep doing it one by one, today you became angry, but tomorrow the same trigger might not make you that angry. And then again, again the anger is there, but not that much. And then eventually, maybe the 10th time, 5th time, you will not feel anything, right? Because you know that the same person can say something to you and you don't get triggered, but the same thing for your sister can be like horrible, right? So you know that it doesn't affect you the same way. So it's just a practice of understanding that emotion and how you can come to that neutrality. Yeah, and it'll happen. You again, the chance, working on yourself, all of those things will help you get there. Yeah, and actually work on the. I'll give you all a statement today. You can kind of do that as well to help you with the receiving wounds. If you understand any of these receiving wounds are there for you. So the first one that comes. So where does these receiving blocks come from? Right now, when we are a little child, and I guess it's true for all of us, until unless you've had really tough, childhood in terms of growing up and you've had severe situations. Apart from that, you know, we grow up and we kind of think that when we are like 1, 2, 3, we kind of run around and we have, we think nobody tells us not to do this or that. When we're little, right? We're kind of doing whatever we want. We can actually take a pen or take like little things and make, dolls out of it and play with it for hours, right? Nobody, somebody's presence, of course, our parents and that safety is there. If that's there, then we don't really care about having friends or not having friends, right? We can just be our own friend and do whatever, right? Now, what happens is that at at a certain age, for all of us, the receiving wounds would have hit. So, for example, you're 3, you're 5, you're 6, right? Now you're growing up. Now you see people around you. You go to school, you meet people, you socialize, right? Now you're kind of taking in cues that this is what happiness looks like, right? For when you were a little child, for you maybe a little thing was also, something that really was making you happy. But now that you're grown up, you're saying, oh, this is the kind of doll that, this one has. This is a tea set that this person has. This is a car that somebody has. So I also want it, right? And maybe then this will also give me happiness. So those are little cues that start to build when we start socializing, right? So one of the first conditioning during our childhood would be that you go and you ask for a car or a doll, and you're told that don't ask for too much, right? Or don't be so greedy, right? Or whatever we have is enough, right? Or your father is working very hard, your mother only your father is not working, your mother has a job, so we don't have money. So that's so don't be so greedy, right? So that's the first time you develop this receiving block, right? That okay, I cannot ask for too much. Whatever I have, I should be happy with that, right? So that's number one. The second is um via guilt, that if there is a particular situation where your family is not able to get you whatever you want, your parents or somebody around you will start telling you that look at this person, they don't even have this, or look at that person, they are like, so I don't know. And people also say that there is a child in Africa who is not eating, and there is a child in India who doesn't have anything, how people give examples. So why are you being so why do you want it, right? So we are giving you so much, you should be happy with that. So there is this guilt wound, right? That guilt say you start thinking, yeah, I should not have everything, because then they will not have, as if there is not unlimited abundance. We are not told that, right, as we are growing up. So second is guilt. Third is control, right? So if I receive, I'll owe someone. So like now you think that if I get this, then I have to be friends with this person, right? Or if I take this from so and so, then I will be answerable to them. So I'll just say no, right? So then you just close that door from, like, I don't know. I mean, you must have seen from relatives that, they give you gifts on festivals, and then you feel like you owe them now, right? Now you have to go to their place. You have to, I don't know, whatever it is, right? So there is this give and take you start feeling. So you don't want to do that, so you stop your receiving there, right? This could be growing up, and then eventually it could be with friends, it could be with your partners. A lot of women who work a lot of people who come to me for business coaching, they say that I don't want my husband's money. I want to do everything on my own, or everything. It's great to be financially independent, but to say that I don't want my husband's money, receiving block. Because, then even if, suppose there are, so what happens is sometimes, if your business, how business goes up and down, right? It's a wave. So there can be months that can be a little scanty, right? So if you have support of your husband, whatever, wherever you are, if your partner, it's good, right? It actually helps you feel secure that I'm not going to be like without food. I won't be on the streets, right? But because these receiving wounds are so deep that if you take from your husband, now you'll be answerable to him. Now you have to, there will be certain control mechanisms in place. So I will not do that. So in a way, it is a wound because you can have a healthy relationship with your husband, right? Your husband can take your money. You can take your husband's money. But I will not do it completely, then blocks you from ever receiving, right? And of course, it's not just the partner. This is an example I've heard again and again. It could be with anyone, anybody that you're sharing finances with, right? So it can also be you taking money from your parents, and then you're married, and then you're like, now I will never take money from my parents. And then that's again a receiving wound because a healthy gift of receiving and taking can be in any form in any stage of your life, and you don't have to stop anything, because of being married or not married, right? But these are all notions that society has or actually parents cannot take money from your daughter once they're married. So many such notions, right? Why? Like these are all receiving wounds. Actually, they stop you receiving not just from the daughter, then from many other sources as well. Yeah. So the third one was control. Then, of course, trauma. When you look at um, how people growing up, people have hurt you, right? Within families, right? Brothers, people, they fight over property, right? Or your rightful share is taken away by someone else, right? So what is all of that? That's trauma. So this means that the last time I was vulnerable or I opened up, I got hurt, right? So I will not receive now, right? So many clients who have had familial struggles, issues around money, they have huge money blocks now. Of course, there is one property that's stuck, right, because of whatever, but actually that reflects in every area of their life, right? Now even their business is stuck. Now they're not receiving money from, say, rent. Their kids are not flourishing, but that's because this person has receiving wounds, so he's not even able to receive the success of that person's children. I mean, his own children, his business, because somewhere he feels like, now I've been duped, I will always be duped. You see, so like Yashika was saying, why does this pattern keep repeating? Because he's not learned the lesson from one place, right? So now it'll keep coming to him again and again and again till he actually learns to receive money, right? Maybe that property is worth whatever. Maybe that person can actually make 100 times more than the property, right? But we keep getting stuck with that one property, and then you'll see the life actually revolving around that and the struggles, and then you also don't get that. You see, and it's like that IVF example. And I've seen clients also have given up, surrendered their property, I don't care, and created much more. And then the property also comes and the value is so low that they don't even care. you know they're like, okay, whatever. So that also gets sorted. So it is, everything is connected if you look at it that way energetically, and especially when it comes to receiving. So that's another one. And then of course, if you look at trauma, then you also have to look at the ancestral story, right? So if you've had and I think ancestral wound we all have, because somewhere in our past there has been lack of resources, and some of our ancestors would have struggled with money, right? Money, partition especially, or people who move from countries to one, they have to leave everything and come. So of course there is a receiving wound. If you have so much, if you're so wealthy and you suddenly have to one day get up and leave, you will be scared, right? And that energy of it will go in the DNA and will go into the coming generations, that it's everything can be taken away any time. So then you're constantly super aware, super scared, of everything. So that is also a receiving block, so I think that we all have, and one, I mean, at a certain levels. So then what we carry is it's noble to struggle, right? So if you struggle, only then you can make money. So then we kind of believe in it so much because so the previous generation struggled because they had no choice, but now they've made us all believe that struggle is good, that only hard work can bring you money, and so we actually start our receiving gets activated only when we work hard, whatever hard work means for us, whatever struggle means for us. So we can just receive without doing anything by just being, but now we have to go through that to receive because of that ancestral wound. Yeah, cool. So I guess you must have understood some of the other block that you probably have, right, when it comes to either childhood or guilt or control or trauma or ancestral memory in that sense. Yeah. Now I just wanted to go over some other blocks that I thought made sense. Any questions? Because there are 10 blocks then I'll talk of. No? Cool. So one is the worthiness block, okay? So when I say worthiness block, what does it mean? Does it make sense? It's actually, I don't deserve good things unless I've earned them. Boy, same that we were just discussing, right? So that's another receiving block, which means ki, you know how, like again in business, you feel like if you've not hit that target of 10 clients or like, I don't know, 50 clients, whatever your number is, you don't feel worthy. You don't feel worthy of earning money that month. Does that make sense? But that's the worthiness
Yeah,
block.
in my case and my sister's case, I think it comes from our mother. So my mother, she was a teacher right before her marriage and even after marriage. And for her, the child who comes first is a good child.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I used to come first, but in a few classes, I didn't come first, I came second.
Yeah.
Okay. So my sister, who was an average student, but is doing the best among all four of us siblings, she still and me myself, this thing is ingrained in us कि अभी जैसे Nistara is there and I am there ना, I'll compete with her. Why is Anisha talking to Nistara? Why is she not listening to me only? Why do I have to unmute? And now I'm 35, I'm so old, and still I have that pinch of mean. So, coming back to what you were discussing, yeah, for me, it comes from our mother. My sister and I go through the same thing. Her
Yeah.
boss, she recently got a very good package, but her boss just ऐसे ही said something that you're getting overwhelmed and see the other girl is quite good with things. तो that thing उसको पूरा दिन परेशान किया उसने. पूरा दिन
Mm.
उस वर्ड ने उसको परेशान किया बिकॉज हमें मॉम ने मतलब हमें लगता है कि मदर से हमें ऐसा है क्योंकि पापा तो नेवर टॉक्ड ओनली ना. पापा के पास तो कभी टाइम ही नहीं था बात करने को. तो हमें लगता है कि दूसरे बंदे को क्यों ऐसे बोला. अच्छा हमने हमारे को क्यों नहीं बोला व्हेन वी आर वर्किंग.
Yeah. So very powerful, especially in
या
our culture growing up. When are you a good girl or a good boy? If you perform, right? And what's that performance? So either you're doing very well in sports, and for us, very well would be like you make a career out of it. Probably, just playing sports probably is not enough, good enough, right? Or your grades are like the best, right? You're getting 900, whatever. Even 90 would be like, oh my god, so many people, and especially with so many people in our class, like 50 students in one class, there's so much competition that you want to get like even 100, maybe you are like competing with so many people. So constantly, what did we learn with our worthiness though is another topic altogether. I know it's a huge topic, but when am I worthy? When I get a good score, when I make my parents proud, when I get a good job, when I get a certain salary, when I make a certain amount of money, when I get a perfect husband, right? When I get a something, whatever our parents feel is like the best thing, when we get that, and like, God forbid if we don't get that, then a lot of us actually struggle with worthiness because we feel like just because, we didn't get a perfect score, we feel good for nothing, right? So many suicides happen, right, around students as well. It's all performance based because of this worthiness that they put their worthiness at stake based on if they fulfill these expectations, and if not, then they feel like it's not worth living, right? So it's sad in that sense how actually our culture, um and actually I said this in another call as well, so we are constantly put through this grind of competition till say age 18, and then again in college, and I guess again we are put through that, and then suddenly we are 25 and we are expected to get like that best job, and like that best salary or whatever a package, and then suddenly 28, 29, 30 or whatever, we are expected to be completely sorted, and be married and have kids, and like there is no connection to our worthiness with our life and what we want. It's very defined, and it has to be according to that, and if not, and that's why people are struggling, right, with their identity. They're trying to figure out who are they, what do they want, what do there is an identity crisis, right, where people are not able to make peace with what's happening. What did they do all these years, right? And then it hits us later, and of course the first thing happens is it shows up on our health, right? It shows up in internally, the dissonance within us, it shows up there, right? And then we start working on it, and then we start to figure out. So yes, so worthiness is a big 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 block, and it takes a lot of guts for us to have, especially in our culture, to have our own identity, and to even which doesn't match our parents or our people around us. So yeah, and many of us actually do not like or do not want what our parents want, or what sometimes we do, and it's great. uh, and I think we're not even talking about to those people. It's mostly about this dissonance that happens, and then our worthiness, and like you're 35 and you're still going through that same wound, right? And so that's what happens, that if you don't work on it, then it continues
Yes.
with us actually all our lives. Yeah.
It's
So
very
the
deep
sec
rooted.
yeah,
Yeah, it's very deep
yeah,
rooted. In spite of being so aware, it
yeah,
still knocks. Yeah, it still does.
yeah, yeah. The next one is control. Okay. So if I don't do it myself, it won't be done right. So I cannot receive help from others because I feel like um, so this happens when your original environment is unreliable or not safe, right? And you kind of grew up in that environment where you were losing control. So for me, it was probably my father. He was an alcoholic, so I was a control freak, right? Everything needs to be a certain way, otherwise everything will go to hell. So I had to be very very. So I had to really work on myself to undo all of that control, because that control actually beyond the point, like I was mentioning earlier, if you don't have that surrender, and if you don't let that divinity flow into your life every day, then magic, miracles, all of this is very difficult for it to show up in your life, because you're constantly controlling, and how much can you control? Beyond the point, you all know that we can't control everything, right? So that's the control block that blocks are receiving from, not just receiving other people's help, but also receiving, like I said, miracles, and all of that surrender part, that's very important. Yeah.
I have a question, Anisha, on control. When we're talking about work and control, how,
Yeah.
we think if we do everything, we might do it better or right. And that's usually based on prejudgment of past experiences, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
usually that happens is because what happens is we're expecting perhaps not perfection, but at least a certain level of competency, that a
Yeah.
certain amount work or something that needs to be done with a certain, and we keep experiencing it having been done either at a mediocre level or below or subpar, right? If you're expecting
Yeah.
something to be done even at a mediocre level and it's always done subpar of what your expectation is, you just tend to
Yeah.
have, you want to hold and you want to control, because then you
Yeah.
just know you're wasting your time twice over.
Yeah.
Once you're
Yeah.
letting someone else do it, but it's not happening, so you're doing it over again anyway. So why should I even waste my time? Let me do it myself.
Yeah. But you know what's happening? I mean, I completely understand your example, because I was like that. I think I'm still like that somewhere inside, but it's the judgment that we are judging other folks as being incompetent, and we are judging ourselves as being superior. And somewhere we're also actually, by when we're doing this, we are putting so much pressure on our own selves that we are perfect, but we are not, right? We can also
Yeah.
make mistakes, and we can do the same thing, and it can actually go to it can actually be a disaster. But then, of course, we'll be like, okay, now first of all, the other person can't judge me for it being a disaster, and now I anyways harshly judge myself. So I know that I have to keep working hard on myself, right? So you see, what is happening is we have judged the other person. We're not letting them do better. We are putting so much pressure on ourselves, and by putting pressure, we don't really have that guarantee that will be the best possible outcome, right? So what do? We actually need to start letting go of the control, and we have to. It's again a muscle that we have to build of trusting the other person to do better, and letting the other person fail. It's okay, right? And then still trusting the other person to learn, because okay, even if they fail, they can learn and do better. And yeah, it might take a few see, if we grew up in that capricious environment, we cannot even imagine that hum kisi ko three chances denge to fail because we think that that will be the end of our lives, right? So we better do it ourselves and do it. But it's actually about letting go and trusting, and actually growth and expansion happens when other folks join in. We can only become bigger, right? When we have other folks, we cannot do everything on our own. So it is actually a muscle that we'll have to work on to learn, to let other people do stuff and fail, learn, teach them again, and it'll happen second, third time. But we have so much fear from our experience that we don't let it happen. We don't let it happen like three, four times before people can change. So yeah, so it's actually the muscle of trusting other people that we have to work on rather than the control. Because the control is because we can't trust. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I have a sub question to that.
Yeah.
So talk about how we are talking about, say, something related to the accounts, right?
Yeah.
You have to, somebody made a mistake, that's okay. They learn from the mistake. Next time, they're probably not going to make that mistake again. Now, in the field of creativity, that is something a little bit more complex, and perhaps it relates to me because I'm in that field. It can take a lifetime for someone else to think the way I do in terms of the creative process.
Yeah.
Perhaps, yes, certain things they can emulate, but
Yeah.
the essence of it perhaps is not something that another human can do. So how do you allow for that growth where your vision and your design
Yeah.
is what drives your work, your business?
I completely understand you, because even when I am working, I feel like, the level of say creativity in terms of say coming up with a new clearing or thinking about what clients want is so unique to me. And I feel like nobody can do it better than me, like even if I ask somebody to do it, right, like to think about to go into that creative field. But then and again, so much control, and I can't even think of letting other people do something for me. But then I read a quote that said a good leader is a good leader is a person who creates more leaders like themselves.
Yeah.
So that's the work that you have to do. That if a person if there is creativity, and for me, I was like, oh my god, I'm going to create more Anisha. That's not possible. Like, it's like too much work, or like I feel like I'm losing control, because if somebody else is doing the same kind of work like me, like, is that even, like, can I even let that happen? But yeah, that's what it is all about. Like, it is about creating more Anisha. It's about creating more Nistara. So yeah, you'll train them. How will you train them, right? Like if they come to Nistara school, you'll want those students or people or folks to be so good, and you'll give them questions to think creatively, right? So that even if they can't, they'll actually be pushed to think. They'll actually be, stretched so that, it comes out. So that's for you to think of how you'll make them think. But not doubt the potential of those folks.
Okay.
Make sense? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's work. It's hard work, and
Yeah.
it comes from control, letting go of control, and it's not going to be easy. But Baby steps, yeah. So you don't also push yourself that today you are like this and tomorrow you're going to give all control to everyone. That's also another extreme way of, yeah. But slowly, if you do it and you know that you're letting go, so you have to choose and let go. What does that mean? So you're choosing um creativity, but you're letting go of control. Then you're choosing accountability, but you're letting go of control, So, and it might happen every moment, choosing, letting go, choosing, letting go, choosing, until you are now open enough to, you can, you have that inner knowing that even this person can do it, until you reach there. It can be a year, it can be a day, it can be a week. You're not harsh on yourself. You're doing your job, and you don't have to be perfect. Yeah. And once that happens, then maybe say 2 years down the line, you'll be like, oh my god, I don't even have to go to work, and everything is getting done because they're also efficient or whatever. Like, I'm giving an example, but eventually you'll see the difference because you put the hard work in. But again, you probably also think that you have to work very hard to create more desire, so that's another belief that you probably have. But anyways, if you get into it and you write down what is it that's coming up, it'll be easy for you to uh take the path of least resistance. Yeah. It can be a year, but you have to just be committed. It can be a week also, to just be committed to that path, and it'll happen. Yeah. Cool. Next is the distrust block. Okay. So people always want something in return. Yeah. Like quid pro quo. Yeah. That this is also something that I have. So I will give, say, go to somebody's house, give them a gift, go to somebody's house for lunch, but then I will keep thinking, I'm not equating that lunch with the gift, but it's almost like I have to give something. Like I'll take some, like, an expensive gift for the dog, like it'll be like that. It's not for them, but to the extent that I did it for a year, I think, with my own brother. And then he actually told me that you have to stop getting these gifts, and like stop it, like no more gifts for the dogs. And it's like, okay. But in my head, then I'm thinking, what am I doing? It's like I cannot receive, say, a lunch or a free lunch, literally, and so I have to pay for it, in some way or form. So this is also another block that a lot of folks have, that we will keep. Some people, have you seen people try to make friends with people by gifting them certain things, like, they try to buy their friends. So that's
Yeah.
also another receiving block. They don't believe that somebody would like them. They cannot receive their love, so they have to pay, they have to give them something, only then they can receive. So that's that distrust block. Yeah.
So when you say the give and take thing, there's a
Ah.
trust deficit, and that's why we are giving in order to receive the friendship, right?
Mm.
We were discussing at the beginning that
Mm.
there has to be a balance. There's give and take in some way or form, right? We breathe in, we breathe out. If we breathe too much in, we not letting out, how are we going to breathe
Right.
again?
Yeah.
So in that karmic field of
Yeah.
give and take,
Right.
would that be something not to worry too much about, or is it only like a certain amount of it, doing it repetitively? Is that when we should be worried?
So, I understand, so you're absolutely right. But when you're there, your presence is also giving, isn't it? So if you
Right.
go to somebody's house, right, you are there intently, right? You're not on your phone, you're not like in your own whatever world. You're actually present with them. You're listening to them, you're talking to them, you're there. And that's good enough, right? Somebody's invited you for, say, whatever, lunch. Sure, you can get them chocolate, you can, right? And that's where the return gift thing came, right? When we had birthday parties, we always had like those return gifts, right? But okay, I mean, if you're doing it out of, again, that's also a very thin line, right? If you're doing it out of love, out of um like there is no compulsion. As long as there is no compulsion, it's okay to give them flowers, whatever, give them something, right? But if you're constantly thinking, I have to go and have to take something, it has to be, if you're getting calculative, if it's becoming a burden, then you are blocking that flow of receiving and giving, right? Because receiving can be a compliment, receiving can be your presence, right? But Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it means. Yeah. We actually equate with giving with a gift, which has to be something big, but it can actually be us talking and then listening. That's also receiving and giving. Yeah. So it can be very simple as well. Yeah. The next one is the abandonment block. Okay. So if I depend on others, I'll be disappointed again. Yeah. So that also hyper independence comes. One of the reasons for it could be that if I depend on my again, somebody in my family, like you must have seen grown up with people around that were dependent on somebody, and then they had to kind of lose everything, or they were not given the money or whatever they wanted, right? Because they didn't have a job, they didn't have the education. So you learned that I can never take help from anyone, right? I can't depend on my family, I can never do this because these people are. So by the way, what are you doing? Number one, you're judging them, right? Number two, all folks who can ever give you, right, or actually help you grow, you've blocked your receiving from all of them now because you're like, I have to do it all on my own, right? Based on uh, the fact that actually, if I take money from my father, I'll probably be abandoned. Yeah, which you've learned. So now you're like, it's blocked, right? So that can be another receiving block. Okay. Next one is, this is very interesting, the overgiver block. Okay, I think we have a little bit of this in all of us. I must give endlessly to be loved or accepted. Right. So this is a trauma response called fawning. Right. So what is fawning? When you were a little child and you thought you wanted to get attention of yours, your father, mother, and of course, as a child, as a 3-year old, as a 4-year old, you need to receive that love from your parents. It's a must for your survival, right? But at that time, suppose your parents are working, suppose your parents are not there with you, right? And they're, even when they are with you, they are fighting, right? So they're not giving you that love and attention. So what happens? Some children, they develop this trauma response of fawning, which means I will be a good girl, or I will listen to daddy, I'll listen to mom, and I'll say good things, or I will say things that they want to hear so that they give me attention, right? And I have seen many clients who have this fawning response way into their adult lives, right? And they are constantly fawning, they're constantly trying to do all good things for everybody around them, and nobody loves them and nobody respects them. Because what happens is that when you're doing it as a child with your parents, that's a must, right? Because you are actually literally trying to survive. You need their love, you need their support to survive, right? But when you do it with adults, they can see through it, right? Now you are an adult, you don't need to do that to survive. But but you develop it as a way of living, and actually in return you don't get what you want as an adult. That's what happens. And then you get into that endless loop of, I do so much but nobody loves me, I give them so much but nobody gives me anything. And it's a destructive loop. It's not going to take you anywhere, right? So it's good to come to awareness. And again, giving and receiving, we know it's a flow of life, yes, but you can't keep endlessly giving, right? And that also actually is a block, and that stops your flow of receiving. So you'll see a lot of these folks who are like this, they actually tend to not receive a lot of things that they want because they're giving so much, and then they are the ones who are burnt out, they have health issues, because how much can you give from an empty cup, right? You need to keep filling it up. So it's important to maintain that, right? The next one is the visibility block. Okay, if I receive, I'll draw attention, and that's unsafe, so I will not receive, right? A lot of folks, again, like I said, with the partition, or folks who actually have ancestral wounds where there was violence, or if you were seen and you were attacked. This is, I mean, of course, this is a very stark example, but it could be so many other things. If you had body image issues, right, and somebody bullied you for the way you looked, right, there can be so many things. Like, if you are seen and you have some traumatic experience linked to it, then it can lead to a visibility block, right? So now, like, if I receive, I'll draw attention, so I'll just block it. I don't want to be seen, right? So then you block your receiving from all folks, people. I guess I also had a receiving block because it took me 10 years to go get on YouTube. And so there can be different forms of visibility blocks as well that we can have, and from various experiences in your life, right? It could be body image, it could be like, for me it was fear of being seen generally around my dad, so I used to like to hide. So it can be so many things, and like I said, partition. So these are all so different, such different examples, but they're all leading to visibility block, right? So then the next one is the guilt block. I think this we've talked about already. So others have it worse, so why should I have more? Yeah? That's very, like, we grew up with that. So the so and so is so poor and they don't even have three times of food. Why are you complaining so much? So then we get that guilt, and so that develops a block, right? So this we've already talked about. Next is again scarcity block. I think is similar. There isn't enough for everyone, right? Again, this notion of the pie is limited, that if we take a part of it, it'll lead to lesser amount of resources for others. It's a lie, because if I ask you, where is money coming from, or where are these resources coming from, what would you say?
I think it's infinite, just like, how water just keeps coming from the mountains. I mean, snow falls, glaciers form, and it just flows into the ocean, and you can't count each drop. I mean, I
Yeah,
mean, it's just abundant everywhere, just like oxygen. I mean, certain places, yes, there's pollution, but there is oxygen too.
yeah,
So, I mean, that's not something that's finite at all.
yeah. So actually, it's a lie. The scarcity block, that if you have it, then others won't have it. The opposite. Actually, yesterday my mentor was saying that the more abundance you claim, you actually expand that for others. So, which means it's the opposite. So, the more abundant you are, the more you thrive, you help others thrive. So, isn't that so liberating? So, the happier you are, the more joyful you are, the more abundant you are, you're actually making it more for, वैसे तो it's infinite, right? Which is true, that what Nithya is saying. But what I'm saying is that even if you take that what's yours and you actually thrive with it, you're you're only doing good for other people. You're making it better for other people. Yeah. So it's actually a lie, and it's the opposite of this, right? Um, that's also one other thing around belief. I would say that it's so powerful because what you believe becomes true for you, even if it's not true for other folks, right? For example, right now you guys don't have sunlight, and there's sunlight here, right? But just because there's no sunlight there, do you guys feel that the sun doesn't exist? No, right? You know that it'll come tomorrow, right? So, but for some people, it's darkness right now, and they think that this is the end of the world, right? Or whatever. Like, it's an example. But what I'm trying to tell you is the belief that matters, right? So it's always good to be curious. It's always good to ask questions, and it's always good to not always go with those finite, especially when it comes to negative things, because our belief will actually end up creating our reality then. Yeah. So that's something very important. Just like the scarcity block, we all grew up with it, right? Save for a rainy day. Our parents told us, right? Even now, we think that the pool is limited. Like, if you don't get a client today, tomorrow it's going to be the end. A lot of like business folks also think that way. But if we understand this flow of give and take, and we kind of learn to live with it like that, then the flow will continue. It's like money. They say that you can't hold on to money, right? Money has to keep flowing. Only then it'll come to you. So that's a simple, such a great example for us to understand this receiving and giving, right? Like, if you don't uh, give, if you're not paying, right? Or if you say you have your workers and stuff, and you people who work for you, and you don't pay them, you'll see that money stops coming to you as well, right? From wherever money is coming to you. So there needs to be this flow uh, that keeps happening. And you'll see that if you ask, when you ask for discounts, and you are say haggling for something, you end up creating blocks in your life. You see, like, your clients will start asking for discounts from you. Like if you have a business, right? And if you have a job, you see like your bonuses stop coming. So actually it's all connected, like, with the flow of life. And actually, if you don't spend and you start hoarding money, you'll see some expenses coming up. So money anyways goes out. You can't really keep the money, right? Then big chunks of money go out for some big. There's a car repair. There's this. I sent this to the broadcast yesterday because I was coaching someone. And I was like, yeah, money actually can't be held. It has to go, like, go and then come. So it's almost like that cat, right? I was telling this client of mine that, goes around, has fun, and then comes back home next day. So if you don't let the cat go out, it'll go mad, right? It has to keep having going, coming. You can't catch on to or hold on to that cat. So it's like that energy, right? Then we have the vulnerability block. Receiving makes me dependent. This also we have discussed that. Again, I don't want to be dependent, right? Again, what is dependency, right? We make it a very heavy word, right? And we feel like, oh my God, for years, anyways, sometimes, you were dependent on your parents for a certain number of years, but because you maybe saw something there and it wasn't healthy or whatever, and the notion that you've picked up is not very like that's what's created the block. So now you made it so heavy that you're like, I'll never be dependent on anyone. Whereas we are dependent on oxygen, we are dependent on water, we are dependent on so many things, right? But we make such a big deal about being dependent on, say, uh a person or whatever it is. So if we actually neutralize that energy, it's not going to be a big deal, right? And the flow can keep happening, right? And the last one is the fear of loss. Again, if I receive it, I might lose it, so I should not get it. Right. So a lot of folks, again, like I said, around partition, they lost so much, say, in one day, in one week. The whole generation lost, not generation, but like the whole everything that they had. And so now they feel like what's, of course, they don't think like that. And of course, a lot of people have grown and prospered. But one of the blocks could be that if I get too much, I will lose it all. Right. So I subconsciously don't make so much money. So there is a cap, and this I think I did another call. Like if there is a 5 lakh, say 5 lakh rupees ka block in your head, the moment you make 5 lakhs se upar, you either get an expense or you have to pay somebody. So you always keep going below that because you cannot imagine going beyond that. So that's another block. So you kind of have to work on expanding your whatever your limit is, or having that unlimited thing, so that you can receive and then also retain, right? Because sometimes we receive, but again, if it keeps going away, then how do you grow, right? So receiving and then retaining and then growing, that's what we have to work on. So after receiving is retaining, and then after retaining is growing. That's how the money, especially the money part, is worked upon. Yeah, actually anything, love, health, everything, right? Because even with health, you have good health, and if you don't maintain, and if you don't eat good food, have good thoughts, how will you maintain it, right? So it's for everything. Yeah. So yeah, so actually we have discussed everything. I wanted to do an inner child exercise with all of you to end the call. Are you ready? Cool. So again, close your eyes and relax. And now I want you to visualize your inner child. I'm doing this exercise because all our receiving blocks somewhere start from an early age. Yeah. So imagine your inner child now, right in front of you, and I would request you to imagine a version that's below the age of 10. So there is no right or wrong. Any age will be fine. But if you can below 10, that'll be great. Yeah. See them standing right in front of you. They might look shy, unsure, or eager for love. Look at what they're wearing, how they're feeling. and speak gently with them. Imagine you're having a conversation and tell your inner child you no longer have to earn love by overgiving. You no longer have to earn love by overgiving. See if the child wants to come and hold your hand, sit in your laps. If not, it's okay. Just keep having the conversation. Tell the inner child you no longer have to stay small to feel safe. You no longer have to stay small to feel safe. And then tell him, tell her, it's okay to receive. It's okay to receive. Receive attention, receive support, care, love, and abundance. Now just listen to your inner child. Is your inner child saying something? Stay with it for a few moments and just listen to your inner child. And now ask again, what are you afraid will happen if we start receiving freely? If we start receiving freely, what are you afraid will of what are you afraid of? Just ask this inner child. Whatever answers come, they are right for you in this very moment. Just be there with your inner child and listen to what they are saying. And as you complete this conversation, you can keep having this conversation even after the call. You listen to the call again. For now, put your hand on your heart. And imagine as you're putting your hand on your heart, you can also, you're sinking in with the heartbeat of your inner child as well. And just whisper to your inner child, it's safe now. We are loved and we can openly and freely receive. If you feel your inner child is not agreeing, it's absolutely fine. You just have to say this and do this exercise again till you feel your inner child is now open to receiving. Just breathe with your inner child. Feel its heartbeat is syncing with your heartbeat. Take 3 long, deep breaths. Now, slowly come back to the here and now. 3, 2, 1. Slowly, very slowly open your eyes. Now, take a deep breath again and let's clear any receiving blocks that you have. You just have to say yes. Okay. And everywhere, both of you, all of you who are actually listened to this call, or all 3 of you, everywhere you've made receiving wrong, unsafe, selfish, or shameful, will you now please let that go across all time, space, dimensions, and reality? Okay, just clearing all of that. And now just repeat after me. I now revoke, rescind, renounce, and clear all vows, contracts, and memories that made receiving unsafe. I release all fear, guilt, and shame around being supported. And now we'll download good things. Just repeat, I welcome new programs of ease, worthiness, and flow. And just put your hand again on your heart and say, I'm safe to receive love, money, and blessings. And now, as you breathe in, just visualize golden light streaming in through your crown chakra, so the top of your head, filling every cell of your body, dissolving all the old stories, the push, the resistance, the protection, everything is getting healed now. It's getting replaced with softness, gratitude, and openness. A lot of openness. And just feel this healing in each cell of your body and repeat. I receive joyfully. I receive with gratitude. I receive fully. And now take a deep inhale. Keep your hands on your heart and say, receiving is my natural state. I am open. I am worthy. And I am ready. Take a deep breath in. And that's it, folks. Come back to the here and now. Wow, it's very powerful. Beautiful. Any other questions? I will share this with all of you. Thank you, Garima.
Thank you so much.
Yay. Beautiful. Thank you so much, all of you, for showing up.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I think we will have one more call in November, but I'll let you all know about that. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Take care. Bye.